let's fly away.
With Frank Sinatra crooning those words in his dulcet tones, gazing with those piercing blue eyes, and a smirk just smug enough to walk the line between bad boy and angel. What woman from the 40s, 50s, or 60s could ever be able to resist him? Very few, as it turns out. I'm Nostalgic Nick with Do You Remember? And today we're taking a look at all the romantic entanglements that shaped Frank Sinatra's life. Whether they were young, up-and-coming starlets, or the biggest names in Hollywood, none of these ladies could resist the pull of those big blue beacons of sexy, and were drawn in like moths to a flame. If you enjoy our deep dive, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and follow our channel for more nostalgia. But now, let's talk about some strangers in the night. Nancy BARBATO, Sinatra's first love. Nancy BARBATO and Frank met as teenagers and were married before the crooner turned 24. Their marriage was initially blissful, and the couple were soon raising 2 children in their small apartment in Jersey City. But alas, fame changes everything, and Sinatra's star was burning brighter by the second. A move to Hollywood proved too much for the Sultan of Swoon's already wandering eye, and he soon engaged in numerous extramarital affairs. When these extracurricular activities became known to the press, BARBATO considered ending things. But it wasn't until an ongoing tryst with Ava Gardner in 1950 that she finally had enough and left Frank Sinatra behind. However, BARBATO never remarried, and their granddaughter claims that the two never really fell out of love either. LANA Turner. Speaking of affairs, after seeing Lana Turner's 1946 movie The Postman Always Rings Twice, Sinatra supposedly only had one reaction: I have to have her. And can you really blame him? It's Lana Turner. And when Sinatra wanted something, he generally got it. Within minutes, he had Turner's phone number and was arranging a date. According to Frank, the two had a very passionate affair, with him stating he had never been with a woman quite as carnal as Turner. For her part, Turner denied the affair for years, writing in a 1992 biography, quote, "The closest things to dates Frank and I enjoyed were a few box lunches at MGM. Well, either Frank exaggerated completely, or they were serving up a spicy Italian bite for lunch back in the day." Ava Gardner. In his second wife, Sinatra finally ran up against a woman who could match him step for step in drinking, partying, and of course, cheating. By the time Ava Gardner and Sinatra tied the knot in 1951, the young actress had already had 2 marriages and numerous affairs. And you can see where this is leading. To a happy, peaceful marriage? No way. The union between Gardner and Sinatra was a short, tumultuous period, brought to a close when Gardner started dating the most famous matador in Spain, Luis Miguel Dominguez. Sinatra was inconsolable at the split, reportedly being found with his wrist slashed in his 57th Street apartment. Despite their turbulent relationship, the two remained close, and Sinatra even paid $50,000 towards Gardner's medical bills as her health declined later in life. Angie Dickinson. While not as passionate a love affair as some on this list, Sinatra's relationship with Angie Dickinson lasted far longer than most of his other entanglements, as the two dated off and on for almost 2 decades. They met on the set of Dickinson's first ever showbiz job, the Colgate Comedy Hour, and renamed their, acquaintance when Dickinson played Sinatra's wife in 1960's Ocean's 11.
The only husband in the world who'd proposition his own wife.
So what's wrong with a little hey-hey?
While not a super intense relationship, the two were always there for each other, with Dickinson stating that the two had a very big like for each other. And if they'd had that burning love affair, then their association could never have lasted so long. It's always nice to have a rebound ready. Lauren Bacall. It's never a good idea to get involved with a friend's wife, especially if that friend is a film legend and a man that you basically hero worship. But did that ever stop Swoonatra? Of course not. After his relationship with Ava Gardner soured in the mid-50s, Sinatra reportedly took up with Lauren Bacall. The only problem with this neat little love story is that Bacall was married to Humphrey Bogart, one of Sinatra's best friends. In 1956, Bogart skipped Bacall's 32nd birthday at the Sands Casino out of jealousy, and as 1957 progressed, Bacall and Sinatra were seen publicly more and more. Not a great look, seeing as how Bogart was currently bedridden and dying of throat cancer. The two even became engaged in 1958, but was called off once the proposed union became public knowledge. Apparently, Sinatra couldn't take the public outcry that a marriage to his friend's recent widow would definitely cause. Marilyn Monroe. If Marilyn Monroe and Frank Sinatra never got together, it would have been a crying shame, because the world would have been deprived of two of the biggest stars of their day shacking up. But for a long time, it looked like this dream pairing wasn't to be, the two remaining just good friends. They consoled each other after their respective divorces from Ava Gardner and Joe DiMaggio, even becoming roommates while keeping everything platonic. But then the inevitable happened, and Sinatra came out of his room to find Monroe standing in front of the fridge fully nude, trying to decide between grapefruit and orange juice. Apparently, they decided to share a meal instead. And despite the relationship not lasting very long, Sinatra was distraught after Monroe's overdose death and was barred from her funeral by former friend Joe DiMaggio. Juliet Prowse.
It's the wrong time and the wrong place.
In the early 60s, Sinatra abandoned his pattern of dating Hollywood's most famous leading ladies, and instead became engaged to the young star of his new movie Can, Juliet Prowse. Sinatra's friends were initially surprised, with fellow Rat Pack member Sammy Davis Jr. supposing that this was his way of distracting himself from Marilyn. But whatever the reason for the two getting together, the marriage never happened and the engagement was called off after only a few months. The young South African starlet refused to give up her career to become the kind of stay-at-home wife Sinatra longed for. And for her part, Prowse didn't fully realize what dating old Blue Eyes would entail. She later stated that after a few drinks, he could be very difficult. Really, you don't say. Mia Farrow.
I went and I sat with him and we were watching the movie, and I can't remember a thing about the movie but that we were holding hands.
If Sinatra's engagement to Prowse shocked his friends, his marriage to Mia Farrow in 1966 shocked all of Hollywood. First of all, the chairman of the board was 50 years old, while Farrow at 21 was younger than Sinatra's eldest daughter. Farrow was also a hippie flower child that was firmly rooted in a new generation of peace and love, while Sinatra was a gray-haired, chain-smoking, tuxedo-wearing, whiskey-swigging champion of a bygone era. The match was so out of left field that Sinatra's ex-wife Ava Gardner remarked, quote, "I always knew Frank would end up with a boy," a cheap shot at Farrow's pixie cut. Needless to say, the relationship did not last, with Farrow being served divorce papers in front of the whole cast and crew of her film Rosemary's Baby. Still, in 2013, Farrow said the two had never really split up, and hinted that Sinatra was the real father of her child, Ronan Farrow, born in 1987, 20 years after their divorce. But hey, the blue eyes don't lie. Barbara Marx. In 1976, Sinatra was married yet again, this time to showgirl and socialite Barbara Marx, a woman who took her last name not from the German Karl, but rather from Zeppo Marx, her second husband and the straight man in the Marx Brothers. It was his fourth marriage, and her third, but both the last and longest for either one, despite more than 20 years of matrimony. Quite an accomplishment for these two. Their relationship was also far from perfect. The most obvious strain came from Marx's inability to get along with Sinatra's kids. The bad blood apparently went so deep that Marx didn't inform Sinatra's kids as he lay dying, and they lost the opportunity to be with their father on his deathbed. Inexcusable. However, it was Sinatra's most successful relationship, and the one that outlasted him. And there you have them, some of the loves of Frank Sinatra's life. Whether short flings or decades-long marriages, all of these ladies were sucked in by Sinatra's massive, planet-like gravitational pull. So how many of these lovely ladies do you remember the rattiest Rat Pack member dating? And who did we miss? Let us know in the comments below, we read them all. And be sure to hit the thumbs up icon for us. And subscribe to the channel for more golden goodies. But as always, from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.